Imagine your morning routine for just a second.
Yeah.
You wake up, you're uh, you're already feeling a little behind schedule, right?
Oh, always. Every morning.
Right. And you stumble out the door only to just enclose yourself in this metal box.
Yeah.
You pull onto a highway and suddenly you're just sitting there.
Just completely stuck.
Exactly. You're inching forward, you're like white-knuckling the steering wheel, staring at this endless sea of red brake lights, and you're breathing in recycled air while watching your fuel gauge just slowly drop.
It's a uniquely modern kind of torture, really.
It truly is. By the time you actually walk into your workplace, your shoulders are like up around your ears, you're stiff, you're stressed out. I mean, you've essentially paid a premium just to be frustrated before the workday has even started. It's entirely soul-crushing.
Yeah.
But what if you could take that exact same block of time, that dreaded, unavoidable commute, and actually structurally engineer it into the absolute best part of your day?
It sounds like an exaggeration when you frame it that way, but for a rapidly growing number of people, that's not a pipe dream at all.
Right?
It's their daily reality. I mean, they are completely dismantling what it means to travel to work, and in doing so, they're quietly opting out of a system that most of us we just accept it as mandatory.
And that quiet rebellion is exactly what we are focusing on for today's deep dive. We are looking at this fantastic guide from the blog, Reluctant Low Carb Life. The piece is called Ditch the Steering Wheel.
It's a great read.
It really is. And our mission today is to sort of pull apart the staggering physical, psychological, and financial benefits of bike commuting. We are going to dismantle the logistical myths that keep us practically superglued to our car seats. So, okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand this movement, we first have to look at the massive failure of how we currently approach, well, personal health and time management.
Yeah, that is the perfect place to start. Because we're dealing with a structural flaw in modern living. I mean, the medical guidelines are very, very clear, right? We need about 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise a week just to maintain a baseline of health.
Just a baseline.
Exactly, just to not fall apart. But time is the ultimate barrier here. When you look at the average person's calendar, asking them to find an extra 3 hours a week to sweat, it feels like an impossible demand.
Oh, absolutely. I always compare a traditional gym membership to a guild subscription.
A guilt subscription, yeah, that's incredibly accurate.
You pay $50 a month just to feel this low-level sense of shame about yourself for not going. Because, after a 9-hour workday and a terrible commute, the absolute last thing you want to do is drive somewhere else to run on a hamster wheel.
No, nobody wants to do that.
But bike commuting, it bakes this invisible workout directly into your survival routine. You take a 20 to 30-minute ride each way, and you've hit your weekly exercise goal by Wednesday. And you've done it without ever setting foot inside a gym.
What's fascinating here is the physiological return on that baked-in time. It's profound. The source we're looking at highlights that active commuters experience up to a 45% lower risk of developing heart disease.
45%, that's massive.
It is massive. And to understand why that number is so high, we really have to look at the mechanism. When you engage in consistent, low-level cardiovascular exertion day after day, you are literally changing the architecture of your cardiovascular system.
Wow. Okay, so what does that actually look like inside the body?
Well, you're strengthening the left ventricle of your heart, which makes every single pump of blood more efficient. You're actually growing new capillary beds in your muscles. So it's not just, checking a box on an exercise chart. It is a structural upgrade to your body's engine.
A structural upgrade that also burns serious energy, by the way. The guide points out that you burn 200 to 500 calories in a standard 30-minute ride, meaning cyclists burn 5 times more calories per day during travel than drivers do.
Which adds up incredibly fast over a week.
It does. But, I want to push back on the exercise default here for a second. Because when people decide they want to lose weight or get their heart healthy, their immediate instinct is to, buy running shoes and hit the pavement.
Right, the classic couch to 5K plan.
Exactly. And the guide references a Scottish longitudinal study linking bike commuting to significantly lower risks of premature death. But if I'm already carrying excess weight, running just sounds agonizing to me. So how does cycling fundamentally differ from, say, forcing yourself to jog?
That is a crucial distinction, and it really comes down to physics. Physics and fluid dynamics, actually.
Oh, fluid dynamics. Okay, color me intrigued.
Right, so running involves a massive amount of vertical force. With every stride, gravity pulls you down, and the ground pushes back up into your knees, your ankles, and your hips with up to 3 times your body weight.
3 times.
Ouch. Yeah, and for someone carrying extra pounds, that creates microscopic trauma and destructive friction in the joints. Cycling, on the other hand, utilizes a completely different mechanical path. It's a smooth, supported, circular motion.
So your feet never actually strike anything.
Exactly. When you're pedaling, there is no impact. Instead, that circular movement acts like a biological pump. It actually stimulates the production of synovial fluid in your joints.
Okay, so it's essentially the WD-40 of cardiovascular exercise.
It genuinely is. I love that analogy. You are physically lubricating your knees and hips while you move, which prevents that wear and tear. Furthermore, regular pedaling engages your body's absolute largest muscle groups, so your quadriceps, your hamstrings, and your glutes.
The powerhouse muscles.
Exactly. And firing those massive muscles consistently does something incredible to your metabolism. They act as a sink for the sugar in your blood. It improves your insulin sensitivity because those muscles are, well, they're literally pulling glucose out of your bloodstream to use for energy.
Which would drastically lower your risk for metabolic conditions like type 2 diabetes, right?
Precisely. You are building this robust engine, but actively protecting the chassis at the same time.
That makes perfect sense. But, a biologically optimized heart and nicely lubricated joints don't actually mean much if you walk into the office with a sky-high heart rate, ready to bite your coworker's head off because someone cut you off in traffic.
Yeah, the road rage hangover.
Exactly. Which brings us to the mental state. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the modern car commute isn't just boring. It is actively dosing us with panic chemicals before we even start our day.
It is a profound chemical reality that we've just somehow normalized. Think about the physical environment of driving in heavy traffic. You're trapped in a small space, you have to remain hypervigilant to avoid a crash, and you're constantly dealing with unpredictable threats from aggressive drivers.
Right, the guy swerving across 3 lanes with no blinker.
Exactly. And your amygdala, which is the threat center of your brain, perceives that as a literal survival scenario. Your nervous system shifts into a fight-or-flight state, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline.
So before you have even answered a single email, your body biologically believes you are running from a predator.
Yes, you're marinating in stress hormones.
I hear people say they feel so much sharper or calmer after a morning bike ride, but I always wondered, is that just the adrenaline of dodging traffic on a bike, or is there an actual measurable chemical shift happening in the brain?
It is a highly measurable shift. When you transition to aerobic movement like cycling, you burn off those stress hormones and replace them with endorphins. But the real magic happens with a protein called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
BDNF.
Yeah, because your heart is pumping more blood and oxygen to your brain, your body produces more BDNF.
I've heard BDNF called things like miracle grow for the brain, but that always felt a bit vague to me. What is it actually doing in there?
A better way to visualize BDNF is to think of it as a high-speed paving crew for your neural pathways.
A paving crew.
Yeah, it doesn't just wake you up, it literally lays down new infrastructure, encouraging the growth of new brain cells and reinforcing the synaptic connections between them.
Oh, wow.
That means your thoughts can travel faster and more efficiently. That's why bikers consistently report sharper problem solving and alertness. You're arriving at work with a freshly paved, highly optimized neural network.
And doing it outside adds an entirely different layer, doesn't it? The guide talks about green exercise, basically being outdoors, exposed to natural daylight.
Yes, that light exposure is critical.
Right, because that natural light hits your eyes in the morning and sets your circadian rhythm, which helps you sleep better at night. Plus, the environmental exposure boosts serotonin, giving you long-term resistance to depression and anxiety. But, surely there's a psychological element to this too, right? Beyond just the chemicals.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the actual experience of moving yourself under your own power completely changes your mindset. It changes your relationship with control.
Control over your time, you mean?
Exactly. The defining feature of a traffic jam is learned helplessness. You have zero control over your environment, your speed, or when you'll finally arrive.
You're just a hostage in a leather seat.
Right. And that lack of control breeds a chronic, low-level anxiety. But when you're on a bicycle, you regain total autonomy. You are the engine. You choose the path. You dictate the pace. That daily physical reinforcement of self-reliance builds an incredible amount of long-term mental resilience.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
But I can already hear the skeptical listener right now saying, sure, I want the freshly paved neural pathways, I want the protected joints, and I would love a regulated nervous system, but I live in the real world.
The logistics.
Exactly. They're thinking, biking takes too long, and I don't have the time or the money to overhaul how I live. So let's dismantle the logistical illusions of driving, starting with time.
Just do it.
The guide states that under 5 miles in an urban area, biking is almost always faster. And my brain immediately rejects that because a car is literally a machine built for speed.
It feels counterintuitive, I know, because we have been heavily conditioned by car commercials to equate the top speed on a speedometer with a faster trip.
Right, open roads and wind in your hair.
But in a dense urban or suburban environment, a car's potential top speed is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, a Ferrari still goes 0 miles an hour in gridlock.
Exactly. A cyclist bypasses that gridlock entirely. They filter through stalled traffic, they utilize dedicated bike lanes or multi-use greenways, and crucially, they park right at the front door of their destination.
Oh, the parking, that's huge.
There's no circling the block for 15 minutes looking for a parking garage and then walking another 10 minutes to the actual office.
And this really ties into the infrastructure shift we are seeing globally.
Yeah.
I mean, cities are actively prioritizing non-motorized transport. You can often bypass the exhaust and the noise of the main arterial roads entirely by taking, converted rail trails or residential routes.
It's a completely different map of the city.
It is, and it creates this beautiful predictability. Weather permitting, a bike commute takes the exact same number of minutes every single day. There are no unexpected multi-car pileups delaying your trip, no missing the train, no surge pricing on a rideshare. It completely slashes that chronic commuter anxiety where you are constantly checking your watch, wondering if you'll be written up for being late.
The value of that predictability for your daily stress levels it cannot be overstated. But let's examine the financial reality because the economic argument is often the tipping point for people.
This is where I need you to break down the math for me, because the guide points out that an average car in the U.S. costs between $8,000 and $12,000 a year to operate. And that bike commuting can save you $10,000 or more every year.
It sounds high, doesn't it?
It sounds like fuzzy math to me.
Sure.
I mean, if I already own my car and I still need to keep it in my driveway for, say, weekend road trips or buying groceries, I'm not instantly saving on my monthly car payment or my insurance. So where is that massive $10,000 number actually coming from for the average person?
It is a totally fair challenge. If you are just replacing a few trips a week, you aren't saving the full 10 grand instantly. The massive $10,000 figure is most relevant for households that realize they can sell their second vehicle or for individuals who just ditch car ownership entirely.
Okay, that makes sense.
But even if you keep your car, the marginal savings are immense when you stop using it for the daily grind. First, you're looking at saving $1,000 to $2,000 plus strictly on fuel.
Just on gas alone.
Yes. Then you factor in parking. In a metropolitan area, a monthly garage pass can run $150 to $400 a month. That is $1,800 to $4,800 annually just for the privilege of storing your metal box while you work.
Wow. Plus the depreciation. I mean, every mile you drive a car grinds down its resale value and pushes you closer to a $1,000 mechanic bill for new brakes or, like, a transmission issue.
Which brings us to the concept of micro-savings. When you commute by bike, the financial benefits cascade into other areas of your budget. You eliminate highway tolls, express lane charges, congestion pricing. You aren't getting speeding tickets or paying for fender benders in the parking garage.
And you can finally cancel that guilt subscription to the gym.
Precisely. The savings compound. Compare all of that to a quality commuter bicycle, which might cost, a few hundred to a couple $1,000s upfront for a great e-bike, with annual maintenance of maybe $100 to $300.
That's a tiny fraction of car maintenance.
It really is. And over the long term, you're also looking at lower healthcare costs because you're engaging in daily preventative wellness. That money isn't just saved, it's freed up capital that can aggressively accelerate debt payoff, fund a vacation, or compound massively in a retirement account over a decade.
So what does this all mean for the listener who is sitting in traffic right now, nodding along, but feeling totally overwhelmed by the logistics of actually doing it?
Yeah.
Because I want to emphasize, you don't need to suddenly transform into a hardcore, spandex-clad cyclist overnight to make this work.
No, please don't. The all-or-nothing mindset is the fastest way to fail at any lifestyle shift. The Guide from Reluctant Low-Carb Life provides a brilliant, low-friction checklist to transition smoothly. Step 1. Prep your bike. Take whatever dusty bike is hanging in your garage to a local shop for a basic tune-up, just to ensure the brakes and gears are safe.
Simple enough.
Step 2 is vital. Plan your route.
Yes, and this is where mapping apps are your best friend. The guide explicitly warns against just riding on the busy roads you normally drive on.
Yeah.
You want to find those low-traffic residential streets, the hidden cut-throughs, the protected paths.
Right.
Because you do not want to be sharing a lane with a semi-truck on your first Tuesday out.
No, that will ruin the experience immediately. Step 3 is to violate your urge to do everything at once. Start small. Pick one day a week with good weather. Treat it as an experiment.
Just a test run.
Exactly.
Okay.
And step 4 is to invest in practical, basic gear. You need a helmet, a sturdy lock, lights for visibility, and a rack or pannier bag that attaches to the bike. Let the bike carry the weight so you aren't showing up to the office with a massive sweat stain on your back from a heavy backpack.
That is a pro tip right there. Let the bike do the work. You know, I love that step-by-step approach because it ties perfectly into the deeper philosophy of our source today. Reluctant Low-Carb Life advocates for a framework they call the trifecta of health, which consists of fitness, fullness, and freshness.
The trifecta, yeah.
It sounds catchy, but how do those three things actually interact with this morning commute we've been talking about?
This raises an important question about how our habits interlock, because this is where the biological mechanics get truly fascinating. The trifecta isn't just a list of good ideas, it is a physiological feedback loop.
Okay, a feedback loop. Break that down.
Well, fitness is about prioritizing an active lifestyle brimming with movement, like our bike commute. When you engage in that morning cardiovascular session, you aren't just burning calories. You're actually regulating your body's production of ghrelin and leptin, which are your primary hunger and satiety hormones.
Wait, really? So the ride actually changes what your body asks you to eat later in the day?
It alters your signaling completely. When those hormones are balanced by morning movement, you naturally desire fullness, meaning you seek out real satiety. You don't crave the sudden spikes and crashes of ultra-processed, sugary convenience foods that leave you starving 2 hours later.
Right, the office donuts suddenly look a lot less appealing.
Exactly. You crave foods that sustain you, which naturally leads to the third pillar, freshness, making mindful, fresh, whole food choices.
That is amazing.
It is. The physical movement of the commute acts as the catalyst that aligns your hormones, making the low-carb, whole food choices feel natural rather than forced. It's a cascading effect of good decisions.
It's really about living a real life while engineering your environment so that healthy choices become the path of least resistance. Taking back your commute isn't just about avoiding traffic jams. It's a systemic rebellion. It is about reclaiming those lost, frustrating hours and actively investing them into your mental peace, your cardiovascular resilience, and your financial independence.
I'd say it is arguably one of the highest leveraged lifestyle changes a human being can make. You are quite literally pedaling away from a state of chronic stress and actively riding toward a more capable, autonomous version of yourself.
It really is a complete paradigm shift. Listen, if this deep dive sparked a realization for you today, or if you're ready to just dust off that bike in the garage, we would absolutely love it if you took a second to subscribe to our deep dive and our companion YouTube channel.
It helps us out a lot.
It really does. And you definitely need to visit the blog over at reluctantlowcarblife.com for more incredible detailed content. While you are there, sign up for their free monthly newsletter. It is packed with practical advice and real stories about adopting this holistic lifestyle. Explore more about the science behind that amazing trifecta of health, fitness, fullness, and freshness. It's a fantastic community that will really help support your journey.
The transition from being a passive passenger in your own life to an active participant, well, it often begins with a single, simple choice to change how you move. Which brings us to a final thought to consider.
Let's hear it.
If simply changing the vehicle you use to get to work can structurally rebuild your heart, pave new neural pathways in your brain, and put thousands of dollars back in your pocket, what other unquestioned mandatory daily routines in your life are silently draining your resources, just waiting to be completely reinvented,